And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you, Aquaba, and welcome. Welcome to another round of the Conscious Roster Report here on LIBRadio, LIB and on livinginblack.com. My name is Keedy Owadu, aka the Conscious Roster. Weekday mornings, you and I get together live. We commence from 9 a.m. Pacific time, at 12 noon Eastern time, 5 p.m. GMT, and 8 p.m. East Africa time. We get together with you, and we deal with culture, consciousness, historical perspectives, entertainment, economics, education, health, labor, law, politics, religion, family, conflict, future studies, all areas of human interactivity and development. Today's date is Wednesday, the 22nd of October. This corresponds to the year 62. This corresponds to the year 6266 in the Kemetic calendar, 2025 in the Gregorian calendar, to which we have realigned ourselves to the Kemetic calendar. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIBRadio, LIB TV here on livinginblack.com. It is a joy to be with you today. I welcome those of you who may have been tuned in a little bit earlier to the Carl Nelson show. I was on the feed today. I will share that program with you a little bit later today. It was a very important conversation, and we're going to overlap today's program with what we shared on the Carl Nelson show. It's a very, very important topic. And to the best of our abilities, we're going to give you the information you need. You truly do need this information. As we separate fact from fiction, as we separate ourselves from the mess that's out here, there is a lot of confusion on this topic. Today, we are taking on a functional medicine approach to breast cancer. Today, we share a powerful exploration of the growing cancer epidemic with a specific focus on breast cancer. We'll uncover the root causes, environmental toxins, hormonal imbalances, toxic exposures, and lifestyle factors. Even more importantly, we explore natural science-backed solutions for prevention and for healing. This is, or should be, your guide to reclaiming your health and empowering your body to fight back. Join us on this critically important journey. Prevention is the ideal strategy. So that's what we have on the table for today. And the reason we're having this conversation, I was recently invited to participate in a family affair, family gathering. And there were a lot of participants. And one of the family members, a very dear family member to everyone, was a young woman who was unfortunately diagnosed with an invasive breast duct cancer, invasive duct carcinoma. So that's where this conversation began. We're going to talk about that, which is a fairly common form of the breast cancers, which are the worst of the epidemic. The worst of the epidemic is breast cancer in women in the United States, followed by prostate cancer in men. And we're going to have to talk about that as well. So I've got a lot of research on the table for today. I have my book in hand and just a couple of notes that I wanted to share here as we go into the conversation. This is from the book. This is from chapter 4. My book is entitled A Year Against Cancer with Living Superfood Solutions. I'm going to go into chapter 4. I begin each chapter with a quote. This quote from the American Cancer Society, Cancer Facts and Figures 2019. Environmental exposures to carcinogens are responsible for a significant portion of cancer cases, highlighting the need for effective public health interventions. Well, if you're looking for the U.S. government, the American Cancer Society, or if you're looking for your oncology organizations to protect the public from this epidemic, they're doing a very, very poor job. It doesn't matter how much money you give them. Doesn't matter. The statistics are only going one way, and that way is getting worse. People are living longer after their diagnosis, but that in itself is no sign of a victory. No sign. In fact, here's what a very prominent scientist, Dr. Linus Pauling, said, and I'm going to quote him directly. Everyone should know that most cancer research is largely a fraud, and that the major cancer research organizations are derelict in their duties to the people who support them. Dr. Linus Pauling. And I'm going to give you one more quote. There's a lot of quotes. This is from the book. I have a whole chapter of what do the experts say. And here's another quote I want to share with you. There was one I picked out earlier, but it's all contributing. They're all contributing to the same thing. I have 20 quotes or so. This one from Sidney Farber. The most important thing is to be able to take a step back and look at the big picture. Cancer is not just a disease. It's a complex interplay of genetics, environment, and lifestyle. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And one more quote. What do experts say? This one is from the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, NIEHS. They wrote, and I quote, exposure to arsenic in drinking water is a major public health concern, and long-term exposure is associated with an increased risk of various cancers, including skin, lung, and bladder cancer. So it goes on and on, on and on. So we have this vast spectrum of environmental stressors that we're dealing with. But first, let's get into a little bit more of the science dealing with invasive ductal carcinoma. Now, I'm going to be giving this report of today's program to my friend Kwame Reggie, and he's going to share it with his family as the family takes on this tragic situation. Oh, before I do that, let me set this up because, and I'm not going to go too much into the family's own personal story, even though it's a compelling story. I wish everyone knew it, but, we have to respect and ask for, their privacy to be respected. But I am going to show you a short video that I have pulled up and I put up on the stage. This is one of my favorite researchers, Dr. Mark Hyman. And here's what Dr. Mark Hyman has to say about cancer therapies.
Most of the treatments we have now are really toxic. Radiation, chemotherapy, surgery is a bit crude. And what's amazing about metabolic oncology is the therapy is diet and maybe some other compounds that block some of these fermentation pathways that really have not only no side effects, but have a ton of beneficial effects in terms of overall metabolic health, in terms of reducing inflammation, improving stem cell function, causing DNA repair, and helping deal with oxidative stress. I mean, just the list goes on about how this works. It's quite amazing.
It's remarkable. And we're going back to the origin of many of the diseases that we have. And, a lot of this is systemic inflammation, chronic exposure to different chemicals. You put all that together and you end up with diabetes, cardiovascular disease, cancer, dementia. You end up with all these kinds of chronic diseases. A lot of it has to do with disturbed energy. Metabolic homeostasis is disturbed in many of these chronic diseases.
metabolic homeostasis, which means balance within all the body systems, is chronically disturbed by these cancer therapies that are going on, these cancer therapies. So that's a very important point. First of all, we have to acknowledge that cancer, according to my research, and I'm not the only one who says this, cancer is a metabolic disorder. Metabolism, metabolic, has to do with how your body processes nutrients and creates proteins, molecules, as a response to the environment. Metabolism, it really goes to metabolism. And we also know from the research of Dr. Otto Warburg, published in the 1930s, that cancer is an oxygen dependent, it's an oxygen related malady, because the cell access to respiration oxygen is been diminished. Our body mutates cells from eukaryotic, which is oxygen dependent aerobic, to prokaryotic, which is the primitive form of that cell, going back to the beginning of life on this planet. When there was not the oxygen available to the cell, they were prokaryotic, and those cells use fermentation as a process for generating the energy necessary to prolong life. Now, we do know humans are eukaryotes. Eukaryotic cell life is much more complicated than prokaryotic cell life, and it is a key factor of longevity. I wrote a book in which I explored this in very great detail. And I've written, of course, so many books. This year book, A Year Against Cancer. But that book that I wrote was, what book was that? It might have been, it's probably Longevity, Living Superfood Longevity, or 100 plus lifespan. But I know it had to deal with life expectancy and such and so forth. I did publish the book entitled Living Super in Paradise, which does have a chapter of what are the causes of 4 metabolic disorders. And they talked about cardiovascular disease, cancer, diabetes, and overweight obesity. So we're going to go forward. Today, let's talk a little bit about invasive ductal carcinoma. And from my interpretation of what that term means, invasive ductal carcinoma, what the phrase means, I think that most of the cases are ductal cancers in breast cancer, which is the most prolific or the most prevalent diagnosis of cancer in the United States. So, an approach to invasive ductal carcinoma, a functional medicine approach to ductal carcinoma, integrates conventional oncology with root cause based personalized strategies to strengthen the body's innate healing capacity. It optimizes metabolic and immune function and supports recovery while minimizing side effects from the toxic therapies. Now, the 3 toxic therapies are, number 1, surgery. Surgery is toxic. Unfortunately, women are removing their breasts. Some even prophylactically, meaning if they have been told that they have a higher propensity of breast cancer or higher because of a family history and these gene tests, then women have been known to remove their breasts prophylactically. I know the actress, I had her name in my head just a second ago. I can see her face and I can't remember her name. It's okay, it doesn't matter. But some people are removing their breasts prophylactically, and unfortunately, this is happening all too often, and it's based upon really bad DNA tests, genetic tests. And personally, I agree with Dr. Linus Pauling when he said that most cancer research is a fraud. Core principles of functional medicine views invasive ductal carcinoma as a localized malignancy but as the result of systemic imbalances. Localized malignancy, but because of systemic imbalances. Inflammation, hormonal dysregulation, oxidative stress, immune insufficiency, and impaired detoxification pathways. Treatment focuses on underlying and correcting these underlying dysfunctions while complementing mainstream oncology care. Now, you're going to hear a few points in this functional medicine discussion where it is said to complement or intended to complement mainstream oncology care. I have to read that to you because I don't want to put myself into an untenable responsibility for your errors and the errors you make along with your oncologist. But as for me, I do not believe oncologists are honest people. Dr. Linus Pauling said so. And I believe Dr. Linus Pauling, he won 2 Nobel Prizes in his lifetime. Now, I do welcome you, our listening audience, to join this conversation. Let me just make sure everybody in the house gets acknowledged. And we are in the house, and I'm not seeing anybody checking in. I hope I didn't pick a topic that is boring. But when you talk about over 611,000 deaths per year of cancer, the second approaching cardiovascular disease is the main cause of death. And when we're talking about a time in human history when cancer epidemic in the United States is now reaching 4 of every 10 people, 40.5% of people will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. And personally, I think that's ridiculous. It's outrageous. In the year 1900, it wasn't 40% of people, 2 out of 5. It was 1 out of every 24 people were diagnosed with cancer just less than 2 centuries ago. So we got to come up with a solution in our lifetime amongst you and I. So please, I hope you're not disinterested, but it may be we're going to do the best we can to keep your interest here. I'm going forward. I'm going to continue to read from my paper. We're talking about prevention. Prevention is our mainstream approach. Let me turn this sound off one sec. We're talking about prevention. There we go. All right. So, functional medicine deals with diagnostics and assessment strategies. Comprehensive testing is central to this approach. It includes hormonal and metabolic panels, such as your estrogen metabolites, insulin, and glucose sensitivity. Inflammatory marker assessments are made, such as C-reactive protein, interleukin 6, and TNF alpha. Gut and microbiome analysis for dysbiosis, which is disruption of that gut microbiome, and accompanying nutrient malabsorption. And then detoxification capacity and oxidative stress assays are also workups that should be done. These tests guide precise nutritional, hormonal, and detoxification interventions. Now, nutritional strategies. This is functional medicine. An anti-inflammatory, plant-forward diet is emphasized, including it's rich in leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, and omega-3 fatty acids. The diet is 0.3 low in refined carbohydrates, sugars, and wheat products, pastries, and all of those, and processed foods. All of those are minimized, if not completely eliminated. Often, dairy and gluten-free is needed to reduce inflammation. People don't realize the extent to which eating wheat products and consuming milk, dairy, ice cream, cheese, and all of that stuff is very inflammation producing. It incorporates medical foods or shakes for protein and micronutrient support. And I do encourage each and every one of you to go into the Living Superfood Raw Food Program as deep as you possibly can. Specific supplements shown to support breast health recovery include, but are not limited to, vitamin D3, some 5,000 IUs daily, high dose omega-3 fatty acids. It's going to include your EPA and DHA ratio of 3 to 2. Oral or intravenous vitamin C for oxidative stress modulation. Probiotics and digestive enzymes to restore gut integrity. Melatonin, which supports sleep and may have oncostatic effects. And botanical extracts, such as boswellia, green tea catechins, curcumin, graviola, which is soursop, and wheat germ extract. Those are just a few supplements to support breast cancer recovery. Immune system and detoxification must be supported as much as possible. Functional medicine supports immune function through point 1, intravenous micronutrient therapy, vitamin C, magnesium, B complex. Point 2, lymphatic drainage and hydration protocols. Point 3, herbal and nutritional detoxification support to enhance hepatic, meaning of your liver and blood, and renal kidneys clearance pathways. The Living Superfood lifestyle incorporates seasonal detox fasting as part of our overall healing protocol. And I encourage each and every one of you to engage in intermittent fasting. I do it every day. Have been doing it for years. Intermittent fasting, 16 hours, I am fasting each day, and 8 hours, well actually 8 hours, that 16-8 schedule is recommended for most people, but I'm actually doing 18 and 6 myself. So 2 hours more of non-eating from noon until 6 p.m. is the only time I eat, and after 6 p.m. until noon the next day, just fasting. And I do encourage periodic 3-day water fasts. Lifestyle and mind-body modulation. Targeted exercise programs. Examples given: cycling, qigong, strength training. They support circulation, immune health, and mood. Stress management through meditation, yoga, breath work, and counseling reduce cortisol-driven tumor promotion. Now, I just recently came across the quote-unquote secret to why some people do not age, and I believe this to be true. For one, we know that a 3-day water fast is the fastest healing method known. But guess what? I found out how to do a 3-day water fast daily, in that we're not water fasting, but we are oxygen fasting. Now that may seem contradictory insofar as a strategy to combat cancer, which is said by Dr. Otto Warburg to be a deficiency of oxygen getting to the cells. But with this particular strategy, it makes sense, because there is, within the period of intermittent fasting and a 3-day water fast, there is a period when you are deprived and your body is struggling to make up what you're deprived of, and that it instigates this processes called the sirtuin circuits, SIRTUIN. And the sirtuin circuits are controlled by your DNA, which means it can be accessed through, what's it called? Beyond genetics. It's called beyond genetics. It's called epigenetic. Your DNA can be accessed through epigenetic mechanisms, one of which is exposure to cold temperatures or warm temperatures, hot temperatures. There's also another one of which is extended fasting, but another one is an oxygen deprivation state. It's not carried on too far. So I'm going to share with you this breathing technique. It took me 2 days or 3 days to be able to really master it. I think now I've got it done, but I've been doing this for some time in various forms. This is called the 5-5-10 method. You inhale quickly, filling your lungs for 5 seconds. At the top of that, you hold your breath for 5 seconds, and then you slowly exhale for 10 seconds. Now, when I learned about this technique, I started to practice it. It got really uncomfortable and slowly inhaling, exhaling at 10 seconds. And then it says at the end of this routine, you hold your breath while your lungs are empty, which is even more uncomfortable. And your body starts twitching. Your hyphen muscle starts twitching. Is it the hyphen? That's not the hyphen. Your muscle is just, I'm trying to think of too many terms simultaneously. But anyways, you're going to feel it twitching. Your body gasping for air. And what you do with the last one, you hold it out. Now, they were talking about hold it out for 10 seconds, 20, 30 seconds beyond your lungs are already empty. Well, I found that I would empty my breath, empty my lungs for that 10 seconds, slowly exhale for 10 seconds. And then I would hold it for 1 second longer on the first time. I would do the cycle again, 5, 5, 10. And at the end of that 10, I would hold my lungs at the bottom for 2 seconds. Now I find that I can hold it for up to 12 seconds with my lungs completely empty of air. Hold it up there for 12 seconds. And that's just after a couple of days of practicing this. So that's the 5-5-10 method. And that's managing stress, yoga, breath work. That's all very important. And it's in that, when you're in that cortisol driven bottom and your body's kind of wants to gasp for air, that's when your sirtuin circuits turn on and you get the benefits. And the last one, sleep optimization, improves immune regulation and recovery capacity. And earlier it was recommended that people take melatonin as a supplement for the aiding in that sleep cycle. Anybody checking in with me? If nobody's checking in, I'm just going to keep on going. I'm going to ask you all, can we get you to hit the like button? We'd love it if you would. I see you in the house. Brother Eddie is in the house. Greetings, family. Great to have you with us today, my brother. And do you catch the Carl Nelson show? I was on this morning. We had a pretty good discussion. It was too short for me, but I'm used to 2-hour conversations with Brother Carl. And Brother Carl Nelson, he is undeniably one of our favorite African-centered talk show hosts. He's a really, really competent host. I want to be like Carl Nelson when I grow up. He's got a list of awards he's been given, and for rightly deserves as well. So we're going to keep going. Right now, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to paste up this video. Oh, I did put that video up a little bit earlier. So we're going to keep going. We're talking about breast cancer for today's research, collaboration with conventional oncology. Collaborate with them. You have to work with the family, and most of the family is not going to believe like you and I believe, most of the family, including most oncologists, are not going to recommend a vegan diet. They're not. No, we're going to do the best we can to meet our people where they are and show them that this process of prevention is better than treatment. Functional medicine practitioners coordinate with oncologists to, number one, reduce treatment-related side effects, such as mucositis, fatigue, and nausea. And of course, when your treatment is chemotherapy and radiation, those side effects are pretty horrible. Accelerate recovery post-surgery or chemotherapy. Monitor biomarkers for personalized therapy adjustments. And in collaboration with conventional oncology, a functional medicine practitioner, quote, enhance survivorship outcomes and reduce recurrent risk. And that's a very important point, because this recurrent risk is much more serious than what we have been led on to believe. I'm going to go to another part of my book, which is entitled, this is from the chapter 6, entitled, What Causes Cancer? And when we look at what causes cancer, I took that one out. But one of the things we cannot look at is that cancer drugs, cancer chemotherapies also cause cancer. Now, let me find this. I think it was in chapter 4. Here we go. Chapter 5, entitled Pharmaceuticals Exposed as Carcinogenic Risk. I begin the chapter with this quote from Dr. David J. Hunter. The relationship between pharmaceutical exposure and cancer risk is complex, but certain medications have been definitively linked to increased cancer incidence. And we're talking about cancer chemotherapies are one of those drugs that are associated with the increased risk of developing secondary cancers. The cytotoxic impact of cancer chemotherapy. I'll begin the chapter with that. Merriam-Webster defines cytotoxin as simply a substance, such as a toxin or antibody, having a toxic effect on cells. Wikipedia takes it a little further. Cytotoxicity is the quality of being toxic to cells. Examples of toxic agents are toxic metals, toxic chemicals, microbe neurotoxins, radiation particles, and even specific neurotransmitters when the system is out of balance. Also, some types of venom, example given from the puff adder or brown recluse spider, are toxic to cells. Cancer chemotherapy, I write, is a treatment designed to kill or inhibit the growth of cancer cells, but it also has cytotoxic effects on normal, healthy cells. Chemotherapy drugs primarily target rapidly dividing cells, a characteristic of cancer cells. However, they inadvertently affect other fast dividing cells in the body, such as those in the bone marrow, gastrointestinal tract, and hair follicles. The cytotoxic effect of chemotherapy leads to several side effects, including myelosuppression, which result in decreased blood cell production, causing anemia, increased infection risk, and bleeding issues. Gastrointestinal toxicity is common, manifesting as nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, and mucositis due to damage to the gut lining. Alopecia, or hair loss, is another frequent side effect. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. This is all very important. This book is so critically important. I want to skip forward. We're talking about the Gerson therapy, the book by Charlotte Gerson. raises alarms about the widespread direct effects of many cancer chemotherapies, mechanisms of toxicity against all cells in the patient's body. She wrote, and I quote, "The oncologist's idea is to use chemotherapy as a main means for lowering the multiplication of cancer cells or to destroy them altogether. It would be ideal if the drug being administered spared healthy cells while only destroying the deadly ones. However, nearly every cancer chemotherapeutic target destroys tissue cells, pathological or physiological, sick or well, mutagenic or homeostatic. Almost all of the chemotherapeutic agents in an oncologist's armamentation are cytotoxic, with cyto referring to any cell and toxic referring to poison." So I'm going to share just a little bit more with this because we're already seeing in the case of the current client I'm dealing with, they want to put her on psychiatric medications. They want to put her on psycho drugs. Why? She doesn't want it, doesn't need it. She's not crazy. She's got cancer. But they want to do it anyways. Well, are psychotropic drugs one of those classes of drugs that cause cancer? Yes. Medications put millions of Americans at risk for cancer. What does the data show? A signal of harm, plain and simple, in their published report, Carcinogenicity of Psychotropic Drugs. Amerio et al. Found, point 1, 63.6% of antidepressants were associated with carcinogenicity. Specifically, mirtazapine, sertraline, paroxetine, citalopram, and escitalopram, doluzetine, duloxetine, and bupropion. Quote, 90% of antipsychotic agents were associated with carcinogenicity. All agents were associated with carcinogenicity except clozapine. Bear with me, this language. 70% of benzodiazepines, hypnotics, were associated with carcinogenicity. And carcinogenicity means carcino, tumor, causation, genicity. 70% of benzodiazepines, hypnotics, were associated with carcinogenicity. Specifically, clonazepam, zolpidem, zaleplon, diazepam, estopisclone, oxazepam, and midazolam. 25% of amphetamine stimulants were associated with carcinogenicity, and 85.7% of anticonvulsant drugs, quote unquote mood stabilizers, were associated with carcinogen, with only one agent, lamotrigine, not associated with carcinogenicity. 85.7% of the anticonvulsive drugs were associated. What other pharmaceutical drugs have been identified as known or possible carcinogens? Alkalinizing agents, of which I have a long paragraph. Ampicillin, it's an antibiotic specifically associated with an increased risk for lung cancer. Antacids, commonly used digestive aids associated with an increased risk of cancer of the esophagus. Antihistamic agents. Benzodiazepines, the most recognized of this class of psychoactive drugs is diazepam or Valium. This is an anti-anxiety reducing hypnotic sedative, an anticonvulsant drug that acts rapidly. It is used to treat panic attacks, insomnia, seizures, restless leg syndrome, and alcohol withdrawal. Diazepam is also used for the treatment of benzodiazepine dependence due to its low potency. And we just got up to the B's. It goes on and on for pages and pages. There are, in my book, a total of about 24 plus about another 30 or more, about 30 or more of drugs, specific drugs that I list in the book. Carcinogenic blood pressure medications recalled. I'm going to share this and then move forward. In addition, some popular blood pressure medications have been recalled over contamination with carcinogenic chemicals, specifically nitrosamine impurities like N-nitrosomethylamine, NDMA, N-nitrosodiethylamine, NDEA, and N-nitroso-N-methyl-4 aminobutyric acid, NMBA. These impurities are considered probable or possible human carcinogens. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. We talk about the 12 most common cancers in the USA today. In cancers in women, we have breast cancer, cervical cancer, ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, endometrial, vulvar cancer, vaginal cancer, fallopian tube cancer. And in men, the most popular cancers, prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and penile cancer. Men are also getting breast cancer at a faster rate than women, although women are getting it overall more common among women. Then there are cancers of the alimentary canal. From the rooter to the tutor include oral and pharyngeal cancers, esophageal cancer, stomach cancer, small intestinal cancer, colorectal cancer, anal cancer, pancreatic cancer, liver cancer, gallbladder cancer, and bile duct cancer. And then there are brain cancers and blood cancers. Some of the blood cancers include leukemia, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia, chronic lymphocytic leukemia, and chronic myeloid leukemia. And then there are lymphoma, Hodgkin's lymphoma, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. There's myeloma. And it goes on and on and on. There's a whole bunch of different cancers. There's bone cancers, skin carcinomas, and the increasing commonality of cancer diagnosis. Let me share this and then we're going to move on. Cancer diagnosis in the U.S. are increasingly in commonality. Contrary to the billions of dollars poured annually into cancer-related research and development, incidences of new cancers or cancer deaths continue rising, especially among women. The most common cancer types include leukemia, brain and other nervous system, and lymphoma. The overall cancer incidence rate is 77.9 cases per 100,000 persons among adults aged 50 to 64, and for all Americans, it is above 40%, slightly higher for men than women. The most common cancer diagnoses in the United States, from the lowest to the highest, are breast cancer, with 313,510 new cases expected in 2024. Prostate cancer, most common cancer among men, expected to produce 268,490 new cases expected in 2024. Lung cancer, colon and rectal cancer, melanoma, bladder cancer, non-Hodgkin lymphoma, kidney cancer, endometrial cancer, pancreatic cancer, leukemia, thyroid cancer. So I'll close this chapter with a wise word regarding this crisis from the late British molecular biologist John Cairns. He wrote, "The man in the street has unfortunately been sold the idea that the breakthrough cure for cancer is just around the corner. The very prospect of effective treatment seems so remote that it doesn't even enter into the speculative day-to-day conversation of people engaged in cancer research. New treatments have not produced any detectable decline in the total annual cancer mortality, even for children." And this is a very, very comprehensive book. I cannot recommend this book too much. I'm hoping at the end of today's conversation, I'm going to see at least 5 to 10 purchases of a year against cancer. If not, I will consider myself to be an absolute failure in convincing you to take cancer risk seriously. And I don't like to consider myself a failure. I see you in the house for Africa One, Hotep Brother Keedy, and Global LIB family. Sorry I'm later than I planned to be. I'm so glad you're here. She writes, "I'm so sad to hear that a friend I sent to you instead had a laryngectomy, chemo, and radiotherapy for throat cancer. What can I say?" You can say, "Wise words. I did my best, but I guess my best wasn't good enough, 'cause here we are, back where we were before." You did your best. And too bad. Laryngectomy, chemo, and radiotherapy got them off. Surgery, chemo, and radiation. You did your best. We're going to continue to do our best. And that's all we can be expected to do. I see you in the house, Brother Eddie. He says, "I only had time for a portion of Carl's show this morning. I hate I missed you." Yeah, it was a good conversation. I'm going to be playing it a little bit later after I finish today's live broadcast. And I've got a bunch of research, so I'm only going to go on about another 10 or 15 more minutes. I don't want to overwhelm you. Clinical example. A peer-reviewed case of metastatic invasive ductal cancer or carcinoma demonstrated remission following a combined approach of chemotherapy plus functional medicine, a low glycemic anti-inflammatory diet, intravenous vitamin C, omega-3 supplementation, probiotics, digestive enzymes, and structured exercise and sleep regimens. At 3 years post-treatment, the patient showed no recurrence. Good for that patient. And again, that chemotherapy, they said it began it with chemotherapy. The thing is with a detoxing program like you just described, the patient will survive the chemotherapy. As toxic as chemotherapy is, and personally, I believe that chemotherapy begins the death cycle. But as toxic as chemotherapy is, people can, and their body's resilient. I mean, every time you're eating candy and junk food and all that, you're engaging in chemotherapy. So this toxic chemotherapy, people can survive it. I will not recommend it, but I do not encourage people not to take it and not to cooperate with their oncologist and their regular practicing doctor. But to take as much of this in your hands, in your charge as possible. Summary table. So focus area, functional medicine action, and clinical benefit. First focus, nutrition. Functional medicine action, low glycemic anti-inflammatory diet. Clinical benefit, reduces systemic inflammation. Now, that includes the protein NEU5GC. I said this on the radio today. I want everybody to know what is NEU5GC protein and its impact on inflammation, increasing inflammation, and cancer risk. So that's the question I'm asking of a search engine. The protein NEU5GC protein overview and impact on inflammation and cancer risk. In fact, I'm going to share this screen while I'm talking to you so you can read it along. You may need to know how to spell NEU5GC when you're doing your research. And I'm not opening a document. I'm opening a screen, share screen, and this is, there it is right there. So this is what came back from that quick AI search that I just dropped in. NEU5GC protein overview and impact on inflammation and cancer risk. Where are we at? Here we go. And I hope you can see this. There it is. Here's what it says. NEU5GC, N-glycolytic uramic acid, is a type of sialic acid that is found on the surface of cells in many mammals, including humans. However, humans are unable to synthesize NEU5GC due to a mutation in the gene that encodes the enzyme responsible for its production. Instead, humans primarily produce NEU5GC 5AC. Instead, humans primarily produce NEU5AC, which stands for N-acetyluramic acid. Now, where do you get NEU5GC from? Number one, red meat. Pork, beef, lamb, bison. It did not say that organic red meats, whatever that means, or grass-fed red meats are excluded from producing this. No, grass-fed red meat is toxic. Red meat, dairy products, and certain types of poultry. When humans consume these foods, NEU5GC can be incorporated into various tissues which may initiate human immune responses. The mechanisms of NEU5GC in increasing inflammation. NEU5GC can contribute to inflammation through several mechanisms. Number one, immune response activation, recognized by the immune system. Since humans lack NEU5GC, its presence can be recognized as a foreign substance. This activates the immune responses, leading to the production of antibodies against NEU5GC. That's inflammatory. And second point, chronic inflammation. The continuing presence of NEU5GC in tissues can result in chronic inflammation. This inflammation is linked to various diseases, including cancer. Inflammatory cytokine production. Cytokine release. The immune response triggered by NEU5GC can lead to the release of inflammatory cytokines. These proteins are crucial in regulating immunity and can promote inflammation when present in excess. Tissue damage. Chronic inflammation associated with high levels of cytokines can cause tissue damage, further exacerbating inflammatory conditions. NEU5GC and cancer risk. The link between NEU5GC and cancer risk is of increasing interest in research. Here are several ways that NEU5GC may influence cancer development. tumor microenvironment alterations, promotion of tumorigenesis. Chronic inflammation has been associated with promoting the development and progression of tumors. NEU5GC induced inflammation can create a tumor-friendly microenvironment. Increase cell proliferation. The presence of inflammatory signals may encourage cell proliferation and survival, leading to a higher probability of malignant transformations. The metastatic potential. Enhanced metastasis, meaning the cancer is going to spread. Inflammation has been shown to facilitate metastasis in various cancers. Elevated NEU5GC levels may support this process through inflammatory pathways. Cancer types linked to NEU5GC. Emerging research suggests that NEU5GC may be particularly implicated in certain cancers, such as breast cancer, colorectal cancer, prostate cancer. These associations draw attention to the need for more focused research to understand how NEU5GC contributes to cancer risk. Conclusion: NEU5GC is a sialic acid that can potentially increase inflammation and contribute to cancer risk through chronic inflammatory processes and immune system activation. The consumption of foods high in NEU5GC, such as red meat and dairy, may play a role in modulating inflammation in the body, highlighting the importance of dietary choices in cancer prevention strategies. Ongoing research is essential to fully elucidate the role of NEU5GC in cancer biology and its implications for public health. So there it is. There it is. A lot of information. And I'm going to copy, cut, and paste all of this into the document that I was producing for the client. And last point I want to talk about is the difference between mammograms and thermograms. This is very, very important that we understand there is a difference, and there's a lot of highlighting and things I need to do on this. I'm going to cut this document right now and begin to wrap it up for today. But we got to understand a whole lot more than we have presently been comprehending. I'm doing the best that I can, but it's not good enough, because people are still giving themselves up to the oncologists, and women are still being convinced to radiate their beautiful breasts with a mammogram. I have this document somewhere up on my desk. Let me see if I've got it up here. If I can't find it, I know I did talk about this yesterday. And bear with me, I'm looking. Mammogram, let me find it for the search. MAMMOGGRAM. I think that's how you spell it. Mammo. Let me try looking for thermo. No. Okay. I'm going to just real quickly put this up in a search engine. I know I did it earlier today, but I just don't know where it is right now. And we're just going to look for what is the benefit of a thermogram over a mammogram. Compare the mammogram versus thermogram or ultrasound or ultrasound for breast health. Okay, so I'm going to look this up real quick. I'm going to do an AI research on it real quickly, and it's going to give me the ultimately, hopefully, a brief description of why some natural health practitioners will recommend thermogram or ultrasound as opposed to mammogram and radiation. What is it called? Enhanced radiation? No, that's not it. Radiation. I can't think of some days my language and my words get so caught up, and because I tried to pull this word up yesterday, and then 5 minutes later I found it. So I'll find it again. But let's look at this. We're now talking about compare mammogram versus thermogram or ultrasound for breast health. Criteria: the purpose. Mammogram detects breast cancer and abnormalities using X-rays, and that's called something type of radiation. I can't remember what it's called. Thermogram detects variations in heat patterns, not a primary cancer detector. Ultrasound uses sound waves to visualize breast tissue and detect abnormalities. Technical details: X-ray produces procedure that compresses the breast for imaging. That squashing of the breast is extremely injurious to breast tissue. Thermogram infrared imaging shows temperature differences on the skin. And ultrasound non-invasive imaging with high frequency sound waves. Radiation exposure involves exposures to low. Thermogram involves mammogram involves exposure to low levels of radiation. Thermogram, no radiation. Ultrasound, no radiation. Effectiveness for mammograms proven effective for early cancer detection, especially in women over 40 years old. Thermogram controversial, generally not seen as effective for diagnosis. I think I should have just left thermogram out of this search, but that's okay. We're introduced now to the term. Effective and ultrasound effective to evaluate specific issues, particularly in dense breasts. Comfort level is different. So I'm just going to, and it's I'm just going to go ahead and wrap things up for today's program. You've been tuned into your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIBRadio, LIB TV, and livinginblack.com. And if you want to be a guest here on LIBRadio, do give us a call back. We'd love to have you on. And your thoughts do matter. Your importance of what you want to be about, especially when it comes to this issue of breast cancer. We are firmly on the side of the people's solution. And so I'm going to encourage each and every one of you to want to tune in. Tell your friends to tell their friends that we have our own now. And we're very proud of what we have. We're very proud of who we are and what we do. Tell your friends to tell their friends to get the books. My book, A Year Against Cancer. I have a bunch of other books I pulled out today. The kidney cancer miracle I pulled out. How 7 ordinary people cured themselves of kidney cancer naturally. I have the book, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, with her ovarian cancer having been stolen at Johns Hopkins University, preserved, and they profited off of her. And I'm outraged about that. This one, The Gerson Therapy, one of my favorite books on raw food and how raw food is shown to fight this inflammation that is at the cause of this. Cancer, 101 Solutions to a Preventable Epidemic. Very important. And lastly, I'm going to recommend people get this book, The Great Prostate Hoax by Dr. Richard Ablin, how big medicine hijacked the PSA tests and caused a public health disaster. And he will definitely talk you out of taking that test and then a biopsy. If you take the PSA test without a biopsy, you're probably going to be okay. But if you start the biopsy, it's kind of like chemotherapy. Once you start down that road, it only adds to even more and more and more problems. You don't want to go out like that. So I wish you all peace and prosperity. To each and every one of you on your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIBRadio, LIBG. We are livinginblack.com. Peace and prosperity to each and every one of you.